This appointment from Donald Trump is a game changer. The president-elect is wasting no time making key appointments for his second administration. Some of his choices are causing controversy, but this one is huge. Trump has announced RFK Jr. as the next Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services.
We've grown now to accept chronic disease conditions as normal. But now, in 2024, we're finally waking up to this cataclysm and we're asking ourselves, how in the world did this happen? Well, a big part of it is our diet. Enough is enough. President Trump and I are going to stop the mass poisoning of American children.
RFK Jr. suspended his campaign as an independent to throw his support behind Donald Trump, and he says he is committed to making America healthy again. And that is desperately needed because right now, America has the highest rate of people with multiple chronic conditions, an obesity rate that is out of control, and the lowest life expectancy among high-income countries, according to a Commonwealth Fund report. And RFK Jr. is on a mission to turn this around.
I have said a prayer to God to put me in a position where I could end the chronic disease epidemic.
So what does the Maha movement look like? Well, RFK Jr. says that he wants to clean up corruption and stop the revolving door between industry and government. He's flagged banning ultra-processed foods in school lunches, getting rid of artificial food colouring, as well as some additives and chemicals that are in food. He wants to lobby against fluoride in the water system, ban toxic chemicals, and he wants to make alternative healthcare a bit more mainstream. But media outlets like MSNBC today are freaking out and are once again pushing fear.
And here we are. It is really hard to believe. But Nicole, we're going to see probably the best of the best career staff leaving these agencies potentially hollow that he would oversee.
You would have noticed countless publications labeling RFK Jr. as an anti-vaxxer, but that is something he says he is not. What he is anti-vaccine mandates. He says he wants more rigorous testing of vaccines, and he recently told NBC News that he's not going to be taking anybody's vaccines away, but people ought to have the choice.
I've never been an anti-vaccine.
You will not take any vaccine that is currently on the market.
I'm not. If vaccines are working for somebody, I'm not going to take them away. People ought to have a choice, and that choice ought to be informed by the best information. So I'm going to make sure the scientific safety studies and efficacies are out there, and people can make individual assessments about whether that product is going to be good for them.
After what we all went through during COVID, how does having a choice sound? RFK Jr. will still need to be confirmed by the US Senate, a process all cabinet positions are subjected to, but look at the impact this is already having on the stock prices of several big pharma companies. Moderna, Pfizer and Novavax all dropped after this announcement. Donald Trump posted on X, "For too long, Americans have been crushed by the industrial food complex and drug companies who have engaged in deception, misinformation and disinformation when it comes to public health. The safety and health of all Americans is the most important role of any administration, and HHS will play a big role in helping ensure that everybody will be protected from harmful chemicals, pollutants, pesticides, pharmaceutical products, and food additives that have contributed to the overwhelming health crisis in this country. Mr. Kennedy will restore these agencies to the traditions of gold standard scientific research and beacons of transparency to end the chronic disease epidemic and to make America great and healthy again." RFK Jr. posted on X, "I will provide Americans with transparency and access to all the data so they can make informed choices for themselves and for their families. My commitment to the American people is to be an honest public servant. Let's go." Commentator Alex Stein joined Power Hour to discuss Trump's return to the White House. But we are learning more about Donald Trump's campaign blueprint that won Trump the White House. Founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, has revealed that the Trump campaign didn't spend a whole lot of time door knocking, and they deliberately sidestepped the mainstream media like outlets like CNN and MSNBC, but they still managed to win the information war. Take a listen.
So what Donald Trump's campaign did is they hacked the 2024 election, not in a way that people would think, where they said, wait a second, everyone has a supercomputer in the right-hand pocket. Why are we worried about what CNN is saying or MSNBC is saying? Why don't we win the information war? And then finally, the kicker, they said, why don't we go on the most ambitious, over-the-top, low-propensity voter communication strategy on Theo Von, Joe Rogan, Nelk Boys, Logan Paul, influencer strategies, right?
Looks like it worked.
It worked swimmingly. I mean, and it's honest that all of the people on the left, they said, oh, well, Kamala Harris is doing a great ground game. She's going and knocking on people's doors. Nobody likes it when a stranger knocks on their door. It makes people anxious. Like, why is this weirdo knocking on my door? Probably Lord knows what they look like. So, yeah, Donald Trump did a non-mainstream media, alternative media campaign that was much bigger and more effective than Kamala Harris could ever dream about doing. And you saw that she spent $100,000 on building a set so she could go on Call Her Daddy. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. She spent $1 billion on a campaign and she lost. And then on top of that, she's $20 million in debt. So none of this makes sense, in my personal opinion. It's just, I'm so happy that they did an unorthodox method of not just texting people and knocking on doors. And that's why Donald Trump won, because of those people, like Charlie said, Theo Von, Joe Rogan. And Kamala Harris was way too scared to go on Joe Rogan. That's all you need to know.
Let's look at the Harris campaign. You mentioned it's in debt. It spent more than $1 billion in 3 months. Records show that $1 million went to Oprah Winfrey's production company, Harpo, even though Oprah claims that she personally was not paid. And as you mentioned, the Harris campaign spent $100,000 building a studio to record a podcast episode on Call Her Daddy. If you were a donor learning about this kind of crazy spending, how would you feel?
I mean, they should be absolutely upset. Or, I mean, I know we're on Sky News, but I mean, I would be very pissed off because if you look at this campaign, you're giving your hard-earned money, and then they're going to go spend it on a studio and spend $100,000 when you're in DC or New York, and there's a million different studios that you could rent and decorate the studio for a fraction of the cost of $100,000. So this is what happens when you have incompetent people in charge. They waste money and they end up in debt, and that's why we're so lucky, and I'm so thankful that Kamala Harris is not the president, because if her campaign is $20 million in debt, America would probably be $200 trillion
Can you imagine?
in debt.
Great point, Alex. Look, some journalists still just can't comprehend why Donald Trump won the election and are coming up with excuses on television.
They set Kamala Harris up to fail. That was a 3-month campaign, and she was supposed to introduce herself to the American people. No wonder people were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out? And so...
No. No. You're saying 3 months wasn't long enough? It was too long. It was long enough. It was long enough.
If they had primary...
It's not that they didn't have time to introduce. They met someone and they didn't like them.
I love that. 3 months was too long.
Bill's exactly right. And this is the problem, too, with Kamala's campaign, is that she's been the sitting vice president for nearly 4 years, and she acted on the campaign trail as if she wasn't in charge of anything. So the fact that she can just be honest at the fact that she's been making decisions and our country's doing bad. So she tried to just lie and create this new narrative that she's going to be a different president, even though she's the sitting vice president. Somehow when she becomes president, everything's going to get better. It was just such a lie. It was just so disingenuous, just like her whole entire campaign. So I'm really not surprised that Bill Maher would say that, because she got dominated. Everybody knows that, and nobody saw that coming. She got beat in every swing state. And that's why, because she's not likable, she's disingenuous, and we don't need 3 months. She's been the vice president this whole time.